In a world where information seems to travel at the speed of light and traffic at a snail's pace, where the agenda of those at the helm doesn't always reflect the pressures on the streets, where the rubber hits the road, where there's queue of issues needing to be interrogated in the name of speaking truth to power.
Welcome to a place at the table,
where we set the agenda
table the issues that matter to you,
and invite you to take a seat at the table.
Welcome to a place at the table, and it's good to be back at the table. Are you sitting comfortably? Because it's time to be instructed. And I'll be laying out lessons from the monarchy in Ibadan.
Funke, aren't we always learning? I can assure you that I'm sitting comfortably. I'll be shining the spotlight on a quiet revolution in a consumer credit space.
Quiet revolution. I like that, Inca. The issues I'll be addressing first have to exist before we can speak of amplification. I'm talking job creation. Welcome to the table, Maje.
Thank you, Andy. Good to be here. Jobs are made for people, aren't they, Andy? Therefore, we must first build the people before we can speak of anything else.
Interesting, Majay. Welcome to the table. You sound like you fit right in. My advocacy addresses the vital currency of our human resource, the youth. I'm speaking on active citizenship and saying, claim your power.
That's right, we should be claiming our power, people power. And I can see that catching on already. Let it not be said that we don't have good news for you at the table, so you keep it locked right here. The Olubadan of Ibadan land, Oba Olabi Olakuleyin, has joined his ancestors, and the people already know who his successor is, without consulting the Ifa oracle. David Olamide writes, Ibadan, the land of brave hearts, who take pleasure in waging war, offspring of combatants. J.P. Clark celebrates the city's brown roofs, Ibadan, land of warriors, and I'm a proud daughter of Ibadan. Thankfully, these warrior founders of Ibadan land had foresight in gifting their future generations a structured system of governance, a foolproof succession plan that has ensured peace and eliminated drama. Unlike other kingdoms in Yoruba land, there are no ruling houses in Ibadan. There are only two ruling lines that take turns to ascend the throne. There is a civil line that produces the Otun Ibadan, and the military line that produces the Balogun. According to the Nation newspaper, an Olubadan must climb 23 chieftaincy steps from either of the two lines. And this is why Olubadans are advanced in age when they ascend the throne. That may be the reason there is no drama around the throne. Over time, the chiefs acquire a high sense of community, responsibility, and have immense social capital and social network that they deploy to traditional governance. The monarchs are respectable, insightful, wise, and genuinely interested in the development of the land. Like the British monarch, the Ibadan monarchy is rooted in culture and high regard. For the Olubadan, culture becomes a foundation, a tool, an instrument, and a driver for change and sustainable development. The late former governor Ajimobi of Oyo State tried to change the system in a white paper on the review of the existing Olubadan of Ibadan land chieftaincy declaration published in the Government Gazette in August 2017. It reduced the length of the ladder to 11 steps on the civilian line and 12 steps on the military line. It promoted those along the succession line into kings in their domains and gave them crowns. But it didn't quite work. The system survived that manipulation. It was restored by Governor Seyi Makinde in 2022. And now this is the lesson. Imagine if the predictability and orderliness of the Olubadan Ascension protocols applied to the political parties in Nigeria.
That's a very huge imagination. I'm going to start by saying, may the soul of the late Olubadan rest in peace, and condolences to the people of Ibadan land.
Thank you.
When the death of the late Olubadan was announced, due to the prominence of the incoming Olubadan, there was a certain lack of empathy that I observed. Instead of the city to be in mourning, there was like a celebration. There were congratulatory messages flying all around. I feel like as much as, yes, maybe someone you're familiar with is coming to be the next Olubadan, we still need to exert some level of empathy to the people who just lost, their fathers, their grandfather, empathy is very important. I like the clarity involved in succession planning with the Olubadan, the ascension of Olubadan to the throne. But I don't think it can be replicated in politics.
Why not?
We are able to do that. Ibadan people are able to do that because there are clearly defined lines for succession. I mean, clearly defined families. So say we want to have succession planning for politics, say for the president in Nigeria, what would that look like? So I was saying each ward or each local government will nominate 5 people that will go through maybe the 12 levels of 100 levels
They
of whatever.
start a sort of mentorship
That
and then
gets you to the presidential
ascend.
level, and then we start eliminating. And then at the end of the day, if it happens to be the Hausas who end up finishing the process, they will say marginalization. If it happens to be the Yorubas, they will say, oh, the Yorubas are intentionally sabotaging the whatever. So again, Nigeria is so divided for us to have a clear succession planning that is similar to what currently exists in Ibadan.
All right, so beautiful advocacy. I like that you brought out the historical context of this the story of Ibadan.
Right.
And people must understand that Ibadan exists within the old Oyo Empire, okay, as part of the towns, and it was a specific town that was governed really by 2 rulers. You had the Otun, which was the civil governor, and then you had the Balogun, which was the military governor.
Because essentially Ibadan was a city.
A military city.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
So historically, it was a military, and it's a city of warriors actually. So for those who think that Yorubas cannot fight,
That's very important to say
Ibadan
at this
actually
juncture.
is the center of that. And the reality was that Ibadan didn't really have a king until the British Empire came. And
The British colonialists.
the British colonialists, sorry.
Yes.
The British colonialists, not the British
Language
Empire.
matters.
Because they wanted to be able to have similar leadership structures, the old divide and rule thing, where you have chiefs and obas everywhere, and Ibadan was just an outlier. And so they kind of created the stool of the Olubadan. And that's how we got this rotational thing between the Balogun and the Otun that we have today. So I think it's good for us to tell our histories, sometimes so that we know where we came from. And it's also very important because there's this tendency that the West have that it was until they came and colonized us that we understood civilization. And that's not true. Because the people of Oyo, okay, had been governing themselves. The people of Ibadan had a governing system that worked. All right? And that's why I say that when we come to Nigeria as a structure, as a social construct itself, where you have different ethnic groups and different social groups, we must have the courage to look at what's the governing system that works for us. Even when you look at the West, the so-called democracy in the West, you'll find out that the democracy in the US is different from the democracy in the UK, it's different from the democracy in Canada. So what you're seeing is that they're applying democracy to what is the reality of their situation. Nigerians must move away from this idea that, okay, in 1960 it was the British that colonized us and they gave us independence, so we adopt the parliamentary system. Sometime in 1979, we woke up and said, we like the American type of democracy. What would we like next? The Australian type?
And then we introduced a new president that's absent from the US governance
Exactly.
structure.
So I think that we have to have the courage to review our governing system. And that means we have to look at what we call democracy today and see what fits. This system of governance in Ibadan is close to what we have in China, which is a merit system. That is, you have, before you can get to that committee, that central committee, that communist committee, that elects the emperor in China or wherever. You have to have, ascended,
Been promoting, been
that
promoted
place,
one step up to the
the
other.
amount of GDP you control already will have been so significant. And so I think that we have to have that courage to review the way we do governance. There's nothing wrong in doing rotational thing along the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, but we just don't want anybody to just, any geopolitical zone, to just throw anybody and say, okay, that should be the president of Nigeria. We want that person to have a track record, and that person to have performed at a certain level to say that it's qualified. And yes, it can be democracy if we are intentional about it.
100% agree, actually, with your points about that. Very insightful, by the way, because I'm here to learn on this topic, and I'm learning a lot. But I'm interested. You mentioned that the Olubadans usually are advanced in age, right? So that would be, I guess, in line with the length of time that it takes them to ascend to that position. Something that we see actually play out a lot in African politics is power in the hands of the elderly. So the question is, we see a young monarch in Warri, okay? And is age really an advantage? And is it connected with competency? And what are your thoughts on that as far as regards
Okay,
to
yeah,
the
but
youth,
I know where you're going.
forward?
I know where you're going.
Not too young to
not
rule.
too young, yes, to rule, not to run now. I agree with you that age may not always be a criterion for wisdom and insight. However, you cannot buy experience in the market. If you have advanced 23 levels of leadership before getting there, certainly you're bringing in something really qualitative. Just as she said, there's quality in the kind of decisions you'll be making. You would have moved from being self-centered to being culture for development, as I advocated in that.
Right.
I mean, and in the UK, you could tell sometimes that this person is a candidate for the prime minister, because then we heard just before Badenoch got there, we heard that she may be a candidate for prime minister. She's been a shadow minister, this, that. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think I will start from saying I'm not sure I agree with more barriers to entry in Nigeria. It will just complicate things, and politicians will manipulate as
How
usual.
so?
And unfortunately, what you described in your advocacy, and you were wishing it to be replicated in political parties. The only thing that we see being replicated in our political parties is the manipulation that the previous governor wanted to do. But be that as it may, Yinka just mentioned that the British created the office in the first place. So at what point do we say it is political manipulation? Or at what point do we say it is the powers that the executive has? Because there was a system, the British changed it.
I'm not sure of that, though. I haven't read that up.
Okay, and it became the norm. You get my point? So if another political leader comes and makes a change, is it valid, or
the thing is,
it is
when
distortion of
late
culture?
governor,
Yeah, I'm getting somewhere. When is it distortion of culture, and when is it executive wisdom? And I'm happy for the Ibadan people that they have this peaceful transition. We can't say the same for a lot of places, especially where I'm from, Taraba State, Takum in particular. There has been long-standing issues with the traditional stool and all that. But yes, at what point is it executive interference, and at what point is it culture?
all right. At what point is it interference, and at what point is it executive wisdom?
Yeah.
Predictability doesn't come by chance. It is a product of planning and orderly execution. Hopefully, more monarchies will look at how to be more predictable.
Well, judging by the signs of a quiet revolution in the consumer credit space, Am I safe to predict a brighter future for the Nigerian consumer? There's a quiet revolution underway in Nigeria's credit ecosystem. The pieces being put in place suggest a strategic transformation of access to credit for individuals and MSMEs, who contribute 48% to our GDP. Key pillars of this credit revolution are: one, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund provides interest-free student loans for higher education for individuals from low-income families and promotes human capital development as a foundation for productivity and financial inclusion. Number two, Nigeria Consumer Credit Corporation, Credit Co, established to drive consumer credit access for individuals, stimulate demand, and reduce dependence on informal and predatory lenders. Three, the National Credit Guarantee Company, focused on de-risking lending to MSMEs by providing guarantees to financial institutions. This encourages banks and fintechs to lend more boldly to small businesses that lack collateral or credit. Put all this together, and what you see are not isolated efforts, but a coordinated credit infrastructure. They indicate a holistic, government-driven financial inclusion agenda with the following implications: credit democratization, from students, salaried workers, to micro entrepreneurs. The government is building credit access across all angles. Formalization of the informal. As more Nigerians participate in formal credit schemes, they leave digital footprints that can support credit scoring, taxation, and better financial planning. Credit market deepening. These initiatives could stimulate the development of private credit bureaus, alternative data scoring systems, and consumer protection frameworks. Are we nearing easy access to credit? The answer is yes, but with a caution. If execution aligns with policy intent, consumer and SME credit access will significantly improve in the next 2 to 3 years. But it depends on the regulatory clarity and coordination among institutions, robust credit scoring infrastructure, especially for the informal sector, financial literacy, and responsible borrowing programs to prevent debt traps, fintech and bank collaboration to deliver seamless credit. In developed countries, 60% to 70% of economic activities is driven by consumer credit. If these institutions are properly resourced, governed, and synchronized, Nigeria could leap from a cash-dominated economy to a credit-driven economy, unlocking entrepreneurship, consumer spending, and overall economic growth, adding anywhere from 2 to 3% to our GDP. So who wants to take a stab at it first?
For me, what I picked from your advocacy is the term predatory lenders, and then regulatory practices in respectable borrowing plan. And also you talked about coordinated credit infrastructure as well as credit access from all angles. And I'm just going to pick on that predatory lenders part of it, where you find, I don't know what they're called, but they borrow people, they lend people money, and then when they're not paying up on time, they then begin to bring up their obituaries, they fabricate some obituaries, and not stop there, they paste it everywhere. Secondly, they start calling everyone they see on their phone, contacts. And I'd always wondered, what is the problem with regulating this space and ensuring that people are not shamed for wanting credit for their businesses or for wanting to borrow at any point in time? Perhaps you shed more light on that, because if you're saying this is going to help, how are they going to tackle these predatory lenders?
I think you're safe to predict a brighter future for the Nigerian consumer. I particularly like how intentional this administration is about credit infrastructure, because at the core of it, all economies are powered on credit. And as it is at the moment, Nigeria has one of the lowest consumer credit penetration in the world. We are at 10% consumer credit penetration compared to South Africa at 40% and Morocco at 30%. So it's very important. And I like the fact that the mission of Credit Corps is to ensure credit access to at least 50% of Nigerian workforce by 2030. That's in 5 years' time. I know it's an audacious goal, but at least if we don't get to 50%, we'll definitely move the needle forward. Another thing I picked from your advocacy is financial literacy and responsible borrowing.
Correct.
As it is now, there is a huge need for that education. I don't think enough people are sensitizing people. Just say, oh, one pays all this loan apps are sending you messages, oh, lend, borrow this, you can have access to credit in 1, 2, 3 minutes. You see people borrowing to buy things that don't particularly add any value to them simply because it is accessible. And then there is not even adequate education for them to know that they are required to pay back. In their head, oh, because I can get it, I don't have to pay back. So a lot of these apps where you get to borrow money immediately, they have a very high NPL ratio, a very high. Like a lot of the money don't come back to them. So when you say, I'm not making excuses for them because a lot of them violate ethical boundaries, but at the core of it, a lot of them are also not doing well. They are struggling because people borrow with no intention of paying back.
The point I want to make, I really, really want to be optimistic, Inka, and say easy access, yes. But if you look at the situation objectively, both the legitimate borrowers now have real challenges. This is a country where we have very scanty database. Usually the people that will require loan, we are talking about loans to 50% of the workforce. Those ones are a bit they already have some safety nets, right? They might not be entrepreneurs, people who want to get startups who actually need loans to boost economic activities. So when you look at the way the country is, you can understand the challenges the banks have, okay? You don't know people's addresses, we don't even know how many we are, the borders are porous. When you talk about places like South Africa and Morocco, they have databases, they know their citizens, they know where to get you if you default. The landscape is different from that. Now, having said that, I'm not holding brief for the financial sector because I actually have my grounds with the limited access to credit. It's just that you also look at it from their point of view. Now, I was just going through some stuff. We have only 3% access to Nigerian adults, only 3% have access to credit. That is abysmally low. I don't know how, I don't see an easy way out because those that would do it, not the informal loan sharks that she mentioned, will require certain safety and certain guarantees that I don't see the infrastructure.
Yeah, but
like collateral.
Not even just collateral,
Andy.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. The fact that they are creating a credit infrastructure that will address this point. So you take NEL Fund, for instance. Okay, it's addressing the student loan. So that's students. A huge percentage of our young people are students, right?
And then you have Credit Corps.
Today, you have over 300,000 students that have already benefited from it. You have Credit Corps, that's handling individuals, okay? And then you have the National Credit Guarantee Company that provides that collateral that gives banks and fintechs the comfort to lend. So some of the problems here is that people don't know.
So there's a government agency, National Credit something.
Yes.
So government is de-risking the loans.
Just quickly, but the point is it
just
the people knowing
inaugurated.
or the financial institutions to know that there are these safety nets? For example, if there's an agency that guarantees the loans, why are banks still so skeptical?
It was just inaugurated. So
yeah.
maybe
Okay. So I'm really hopeful. Let's hope that with time we'll see an improvement.
Well, I'm hopeful. I think it's a great idea. I think it's necessary, but the education is very necessary. I mean, our most valuable asset is our human capital, and Working with organizations and employees, one of the leading causes of depression, of struggle is financial health. You know, people are groaning under the weight of financial burdens. So it is necessary. I think it's needed, but it's going to take all stakeholders working together, the education, you're right, but then the jobs, the remuneration package, what are people earning? You know, I think that's very important as well. So it's got to be across the board, and it's got to be a very, very slow, steady pace, very measured, right? But it's great to see.
Funke spoke of planning and orderly execution with regards to predicting a desired outcome. I wonder what will be the weak link in this equation going forward.
Yinka, I'm not wondering. I'm sure that we're in desperate need of both planning and execution when it comes to job creation. So I think that job creation is the only way forward for Nigeria. Like most things in Nigeria, despite the glaring gaps, there isn't enough data to speak authoritatively. Be that as it may, unemployment and underemployment are clearly huge gaps for the country. Officially, the unemployment rate is about 6%. This is clearly an underestimate, especially considering that an estimated 92% of Nigerians work in the informal sector with unstable jobs. The government has no choice but to create millions of jobs annually to get the country out of the current economic quagmire. And I'm not talking about civil service jobs. We already have a bloated and inefficient civil service. However, the government must prioritize and be directly involved in transparent job creation to unlock Nigeria's potential. The country has too much human and mineral resources to be in this current state. Enough of the blanket statements. Government needs to create an enabling environment for job creation. Perhaps the government needs us to break down what this means. And today I will use the agri sector alone to say this means making modern farming techniques available at scale, public-private partnerships to develop agro-industrial complexes to ensure that agricultural products can be produced and sold at competitive prices, stored appropriately, and strengthen the entire agricultural value chain. Prioritization of rural infrastructure, transparent and sustainable access to credit and other financial services. For too long, many administrations have paid lip service to agriculture. Both federal and state governments need to go into public-private partnerships to develop agro-industrial complexes. All states in Nigeria have the capacity to do this. It is a low-hanging fruit, and it will create ripple effects in the economy, providing jobs to both skilled and unskilled members of the workforce. Nigeria can create millions of jobs and ensure food security if adequate attention is given to agriculture. Enough of billions being spent on projects with little value addition as far as job creation is concerned. Government needs to ensure that only projects that create jobs are prioritized. Other things, including security, will be sorted through these obviously simple measures. Agriculture is a science. Subsistence farming is but a tiny fragment. Nigeria must move beyond this.
There was a time Nigeria's GDP, agriculture contributed most to Nigeria's GDP. There was a time. It was followed by oil. It was even more than oil and gas.
Yes, at some point.
But today, the biggest contributor to Nigeria's GDP is services at 52%. Even industries has caught up with agriculture at 24%. So in reality, the contribution of agriculture to Nigeria's GDP is reducing. And it's not like that's in isolation. When you look at it with other countries as well, in Africa, for instance, Nigeria has one of the highest percentage, aside from Ethiopia, in terms of agriculture's contribution to GDP. In most countries all over the world, the contribution of agriculture is reducing. And there's a reason why. Because the emphasis is beginning to go towards mechanized agriculture.
Automation.
All right, automation. And also beginning to look more at services, innovation, tech. And we have to tell ourselves the truth, okay? If any government thinks that the solution to unemployment is is get people to the farm. You are eon years behind, because the reality is that today nobody farms like that. The biggest farms we have are all mechanized. And the moment you go mechanized, you need less people. That's the reality. And so we must look at how are we upskilling children, people of the future. We upskill them through tech, through services, through those things. And if really that is the productivity of the future, for me, I want to put more into research. I want to put more into education. I want to put more into things where young people can engage themselves in things that will ultimately lead them to create jobs, to be able to then reduce the unemployment rate. So for me, that's where the data is. And we're not just looking at Nigeria in isolation. We're looking at Nigeria in comparison with other countries in Africa and also out of Africa.
Okay, I disagree with you on the fact that the government needs to create millions of jobs annually. The government does not need to create millions of jobs, but rather they need to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive so that more jobs can be created. There is no country in the world.
Potatoes.
No. There is
really.
a difference. There is no country in the world where the government is the highest creator of jobs. It is just not sustainable. So I am going to move away from, when we talk about the issues of unemployment in Nigeria, for someone who has an insight into the recruitment space, it's beyond unemployment. We have a huge unemployability issue.
That's right.
Like, you have so many roles open, you can't even find people to fill those roles. The quality of education needs to improve. The issue is not just unemployment. Young people need to take responsibility for their learning. Again, the issues are plenty.
So if you make the local government level or the local government's governance at the local level the hub for everything, this job creation will be better. We're talking of mechanized farming when other countries are even deploying AI to their farms. They now have robots working on the farms, but we're still grappling. That's the truth, that we're grappling with mechanized farming. Now, for us, since you've narrowed it down to agriculture, we're looking at accessibility of modern farming equipment. How easily accessible, how easily can I say, okay, I want to get into farming. I go to the local government and say, please, I need tractors, I need this. How easy is that for me? That's number one. Prioritization of rural infrastructure. Until we prioritize that in Nigeria, we're joking. Thirdly, access to credits and other financial services. So we come back to Yinka and this need to have credit facilities for people who want to create jobs. The truth is, governments can create all the jobs that we want and that we need. That is why we hear public-private partnerships. That is why, according to your advocacy, you said 92% in the informal sector. If I become a farmer now, it's still informal, right? So it is that the government should create an enabling environment starting from the local government level.
By the time we get to that point where these jobs are being enabled, you quite rightly pointed out the onset of AI is upon us. It does actually impact jobs, especially in areas like manufacturing, jobs that require repetitive work, that kind of thing, right? It could potentially come back and bite us if we are not working public and private together. So I agree with you. I agree with you, sir. And partly agree with you.
Thank you for agreeing.
So we say we move, but where exactly are we moving to?
Forward.
A journey without a roadmap is a journey nowhere, as we cannot take systems from other countries to replicate in our own system. In our system, we need to grow before we start worrying about AI taking over agriculture.
Andy, let me chart the course for you, okay? It begins with building resilience in you and I. We are the human capital. We're the important part. In today's world, emotional fragility is at an all-time high. It is safe spaces, it's boundaries, it's acknowledging trauma, all the psychology buzzwords. But are we building resilience, or are we remaining emotionally fragile in a hyper-medicated world, especially in a hyper-medicated country? But let me be fair, Nigeria is not a normal place. We all know this. Building emotional resilience is especially important for Nigerians due to our own peculiarities, our unique social, economic, and political challenges. Nigeria is a nation of great potential, but we experience high levels of stress caused by unemployment, by insecurity, by inflation, unstable power supply, peer pressure, and limited access to healthcare and education. Very important. And these daily struggles can take a significant toll on mental health, making emotional resilience a vital skill for survival and growth. It helps us cope with these pressures in a healthy and constructive way. So rather than being overwhelmed by frustration, by hopelessness or anger, like so many of us are, resilient people can manage their emotions. They can stay focused on solutions and remain optimistic about the future. And this kind of mindset is essential for maintaining mental stability in an environment where support systems are often limited. So it is important to understand that the help is just not there for most people, which is why building resilience individually is such an important part of successful living. We're not meant to live in survival mode. We're meant to thrive in spite of all these challenges. And understand also that emotional resilience is not a fixed trait. It can be developed through self-awareness, through mindfulness, through positive thinking, and seeking support from others. And developing habits, rooting yourself in routines, habits like regular exercise, healthy sleep, and maintaining strong social connections all play a crucial role. As an individual, building resilience is a national necessity. It fosters strength, stability, and hope in a society that needs empowered individuals to shape a better future.
I like this advocacy. I like it because it's an under-discussed topic, particularly in this part of the world. I was talking to a friend about 2 nights ago, and then she was like, "Oh, how is work?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm kind of stressed." And then she was like, "Everybody is stressed." I said, "No, that is not true for me. I don't go through life, I don't process life in a perpetual state of being stressed. So if something is stressful, it's a cue for me to change something. So for now, what I'm just trying to figure out is what do I need to change to have a more balanced, a more thriving outlook to life. Nigeria is not a normal place, but again, who defines what normal is? It's still based on perspective. When people talk about how intentional I am about my self-care activities and my perspectives, like the world may be burning, but it's always, the sun is always out and cherry in my own part of the world. And then they go, "Oh, you're not," no, I'm not going to acknowledge. I need to protect myself. Because the more negative content you consume, the more negative things you expose yourself to, the more it clouds your emotional outlook. So, and a lot of people miss that. So emotional resilience is something that we all need to actively build, and we all need to take learnings from. You have to build it, you have to take learnings from it, and also be very self-aware to know when it is time for you to, step outside the current state you are, to reassess from a distance, and make better decisions going forward.
Yeah, I really like the advocacy. And again, so for me, I usually don't place all the responsibility on individuals, right? Because you said something about safety net. That is a very big issue that leads to a lot of mental meltdown, as we were discussing earlier. People have financial problems. There's nowhere to go to. Insecurity, there's just nothing you can do about it. Imagine you are living in Borno, Yobe, Maiduguri. What exactly can you as an individual do? These are all things that, yes, you might try to build resilience, but the realities are looking at you in the face. I guess that's what you mean by Nigeria is not a normal place. I mean, places where they have these safety nets, you have welfare systems, people tend to cope better. But I like the advocacy in the sense that we have found ourselves in the situation we are. We should try as much as possible to be resilient, but I think also we should, it will be good to balance it with those things that we know for sure that these are high stressors, okay? When you have an entire community being wiped out, I mean, it's difficult to tell the person to be resilient. How? So things like that. But I agree with you that it's something we need to be conscious about. And thanks for raising that consciousness.
But you see, there are three things that are responsible for overall wellness of an individual. Money matters, which is finances. There is relationship as well. If you're in a storm, certainly you will have problems with wellness. And the third one is health. If you do not have access to health insurance, or you can't afford it, or you don't have the basic health infrastructure, you'll be perpetually stressed. So if you combine all of these three, finances, relationship, and health, you then begin to look at what transpires on social media, the Nigerian social media space. And then you begin to understand what you mean by emotional fragility, emotional resilience. I don't know the meaning of the third one, hypermedicated world. You'll explain that. But the point I'm making is sometimes the environment, and a lot of times what you have access to, promote wellness for an individual. So if you live in a place where your next meal is not guaranteed, if you have 5 million in your account now, it's now going to be taxed by the government in the new tax reform, And every day there's something that is gargling. Is it? Yeah, how to survive is what a lot of people are about now. So this wellness, survival mode. So a lot of people are saying, wellness, what is this wellness? It's not what you are well, that you want to take exercises. But for now I'm trying to survive and not even thrive. So we have to create that environment where people actually can thrive and begin to prioritize their wellness. Right now, Nigeria can do better.
For me, it's just very simple. Nigerians are resilient.
We are.
And I don't want to say it in our DNA, but you wake up every morning and then you go out on the streets and then you see how Nigerians go through their day. In a normal environment, I mean, what comes at you it should be enough. But you see the Nigerian, and so when I drive to work every morning, what I try to do is, I don't look at the people that drive around me. I look at the streets. I look at the woman who is, she's carrying her wares on her head, and then she has a child she's also taking to school. Okay, she has to feed that child, but she also understands that I need to prepare for this child's future as well. I see people in traffic trying to sell their wares. Sometimes you see the speed to which they're moving in between cars and all that. I'm amazed by that, because that's resilience. That's an ability to say, you know what, I'm in this hole, I have this issue, but I will not let it take me down. So for all the Nigerians that are out there that are getting things done, that in spite of everything that's been thrown at you, the subsidies, fuel, tax or whatever, but you're still making it work. You're still making it, what do you call it now? Fly. Making it run or whatever. Know that you are the main deal. You are the one making Nigeria work.
It isn't rocket science, as they often say. Empowered individuals make for a strong nation, who in turn shape a better future.
Interesting, Marjorie. You and I are singing from the same hymn sheet, which is why I'll be speaking to our nation's most vibrant asset, its youth. Nigeria stands at a crossroads, and its future rests squarely on the shoulders of its most vibrant asset, you, its youth. Comprising of over 60% of our population, your collective potential is an unparalleled force, capable of forging a nation worthy of its dreams. Yet, a silent crisis persists, a widespread disengagement rooted in passive citizenship. We know the power you hold. History has shown that you can mobilize for change. But for that change to endure, it demands sustained, active citizenship. Citizenship in Nigeria is not merely a birthright. It's an urgent call to action. It's a sacred pact to reclaim your nation. And for you to reclaim your nation, you must join a political party. Find a party whose values align with your vision for a better Nigeria. Become a card-carrying member. Your presence in the party is not just a number. It's a vital voice that can shift priorities, influence platforms, and champion youth inclusion from the ground up. You must participate in primaries. The fight for a better Nigeria begins long before the general election. Engage fiercely in party primaries. Your vote here is a critical filter, ensuring that credible, visionary leaders reach the ballot. You must register and vote. Your permanent voter's card is your most potent weapon. Register for it, collect it, and wield it in every local, state, and national election. A tidal wave of youth voter turnout will not only strengthen our electoral integrity, but will force leaders to unequivocally prioritize your jobs, your education, and your security, as well as your future. You must run for office. Why stop at influencing? You are eligible, even under 30, to step into the arena. Consider running for councillor, state assembly, or even higher office. Your fresh perspective, your energy, and your direct understanding of youth challenges are precisely what our leadership needs. With over 70 million Nigerians under 30, you possess the undeniable power to dominate elections and reshape party structures. Imagine a Nigeria where policies on employment, quality education, and security are shared by your collective will. This is your moment to lead the change you wish to see. Any youth on the table?
Me. I was okay for president. You know, let me just start by saying that was very beautiful advocacy aimed at the youth, and it's timely because now the political conversation is coming up. And the truth is that if we want to be able to shape, when I say we, I mean we youth.
You know.
If we want to be able to shape the future, then we are going to have to participate in the current political activity. So let's just look at the last election, the general election. We had 93 million people registered to vote. 40% of this number is between the age of 18 to 39. All right, so that's somewhere around 30, 35, 36 million people. The total voter turnout in 2023 was 25 million.
That's
now,
crazy.
Let me just give you one data point to see how ridiculous this is. The student number data in our registered voters is 26 million. So if all the registered students, all the students that registered had voted, they probably will have decided the election. And so people need to understand the fact that, look, it's about numbers here. It's about participation. If you're not interested in participating, then don't complain about the results that come out of lack of participation. We have the numbers, whether you look at it in terms of gender, whether you look at it in terms of age, whether you even look at it in terms of vocation, the numbers are there. The fact is that young people do not participate. And there's no way you can hide, the participation because the numbers are there. So my appeal is this: young people, we still have
Like
2
you?
years. Young people like us. We still have 2 years to be able to get on the track. Let's get involved. Like Zuma said, register to vote, okay? Participate, join a political party, run for office. If you don't make it, at least you know how to do it next. but let's participate and let's stop sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah, thank you, Zuma, for that advocacy. And I like the optimism of it again. But again, it's also good to always look at what the issue is. Okay, it's not, we can't use optimism to, clear off all the issues.
Yeah.
One issue is looking at the youth as a group. When you talk about the Nigerian youth, you see everything Nigeria in that group. People are now Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, Ibibio, Igbira, or Muslim, Christian, all those dynamics.
Fault lines.
Yeah.
Yes,
actually.
those fault lines, you still find them in this group. So it's not like we have a unified front. I've not seen any organized youth front, that we will say is a force kind of to reckon with, that cuts across with no issues. That is one bit of it. The other part is some cynicism which Nigerians generally have in the political process, not just the youth, and with good reason. I mean, it takes resilience to get a voter's card. We know what we went through to just register to vote, And then we see a situation whereby there are clearly two parties, one main party and an appendage. There was just a small outline, So when people feel that their contribution will not count, especially when resources are scarce, I'm not saying that does not. So I have a statistics lecturer who used to say, to win the lottery is 0.000, not, but you have to be in it to win it. So yes, the youth have to participate. We have to find a way around it. I'm adding myself to the youth. But the truth is that there's a lot of cynicism, distrust for the system, where people will tell you that this is the person that will win and the person will win. There might be one outlier, one small house of rep and one state assembly, but it's a good start, as Inka said. Maybe that person will now spark and ignite a movement that will carry others along.
Thank you, Andy, for pointing out that you can't win if you don't play.
100%. And you're right. We can't afford to be passive. Nobody can. Every single voice counts. And I think it's for us to, or for the older ones, to educate them on the power of their voices, to know what they can do. I mean, I was so upset last week when I saw what was going, there was a trend on TikTok called the Imbe Challenge. Okay, where they were mocking people with special needs.
Oh.
It was the most horrible thing I've seen, but it's millions strong. And there was one particular, it's influencers like took it up upon themselves. And there's one influencer, I won't say his name, young kid, but he has 11 million followers that listen to him, constantly trending, and he did it. And that's when I saw this. And this is what I mean. We need to mine and harvest these young voices that are very powerful, that can either spread discord, they can spread, lead people down the wrong path, following rubbish, or they can educate, come out and say, everyone, let's do this. Everyone, go in this direction. Just teaching them the power of their voices, I think, is very important. And they are our future. They, because I'm not one of them anymore.
Right. I know that Bright has always advocated for youth involvement in politics at the table here. And yes, I hear you loudly. And I understand what it means when you have powerful influencers championing voter education and participation in politics. It really can be powerful. But listening to your advocacy, Zuma, I kept wondering what political party promos will look like, ads will look like, if they have to create one for us to join them. Like, imagine if PDP now wants to woo us to come to their party to register as party members, or maybe APC and maybe ADC or LP. How would it look like? Like, what would they be asking us to come and benefit from them? That's one. Then secondly, do parties even have mentoring programs, for youths? Do we have books on how to be a great politician in Nigeria, such that youths can read and say, oh, this is going to be my mentor in politics, or this is a role model in politics. Let us even search for role models in politics in Nigeria. You know, who would you choose? Like a challenge, who would you say is the role model in politics in Nigeria? Having said that, the well-being of Nigerian political parties as well, and knowing which one to join. Who knew that ADC was embroiled in internal politics, just as we've had that of PDP for many years now, just as we've had in the LP for years now, since 2023 elections, they have been in one conflict or the other, taking themselves to court. So you're asking me now as a youth, I'm not one, well, I am, but if as a youth you're asking me to join a political party, please, Bikoni, which one am I going to join? Which one is healthy enough to join?
So like Maja said earlier, we try to focus on how things should be instead of how they are. Yeah. Irrespective of the political parties, they all have their flaws and they all have their strengths. So it's just for you to look at the ones that you align with the most. So it's not for you to self-reflect and say, okay, these ones are like this, can I tolerate them? But I also understand that the major challenge with that is our political parties, at the core of it, they lack ideologies. So there's really nothing, it's just cross-carpeting. I will tell you, just choose one and participate.
Close your eyes,
like just close your eyes and choose one.
The one that will give you tickets.
At the end of the day, we aren't victims, no matter how challenging our circumstances are. Change always lies in our hands. Join us again, same channel, same time, next week. And let's deploy this. Me power and you power together. Till then, it's goodbye from all of us.
More to we power.
Bye. Okay.